and that's why anyone can do great work, because if it's true to them, it's going to be great. We like Beatles and things like that. Simple, because simple, and it tells the story. It's not bogged down in technical, prowess. It's just beautiful and simple and elegant, and it has emotion behind it. It's not just how fast you can play a complex thing, or how many values you can get away with, or gradations, and things like that are just they're meaningless. They're technically meaningless unless there's something behind it, something of value behind it, something true. So that's kind of my painting philosophy. That's kind of how I approach painting.
Welcome to the BoldBrush Show, where we believe that fortune favors the bold brush. My name is Laura Orengo-Bayer, and I'm your host. For those of you who are new to the podcast, we are a podcast that covers art marketing techniques and all sorts of business tips, specifically to help artists learn to better sell their work. We interview artists at all stages of their careers, as well as others who are in careers tied to the art world, in order to hear their advice and insights. On this episode, we sat down with Aaron Westerberg, an oil painter based in California, who became interested in art after discovering traditional drawing classes and wanting to pursue the techniques of masters like John Singer Sargent and Richard Schmid. We discuss his journey of becoming an artist through self-study and teaching, his creative process, and how social media has helped him sell paintings directly to collectors. He emphasizes the importance of painting what you love in order to be authentic, and also the importance of keeping costs low as an artist. Finally, he gives us some excellent tips for anyone looking to become a full-time artist, and he tells us all about his upcoming solo show in June at Arcadia Gallery. Welcome, Aaron, to the BoldBrush Show. How are you today?
Thank you very much. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah, I'm excited to have you. Your work is, I was telling you, before we started recording, that your work is very academic leaning, and I was so curious to hear about, how you got to that technique, right? Which of course you're going to tell us about. But before we dive into how you got the technique, do you mind telling us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thank you very much. So my name is Aaron Westerberg, and I am a oil painter, and I've pretty much done that since my early 20s. I've been plugging away in the art world, and yeah, I never really went to an official school, like an art school or anything. So what happened was, after, and when I was a kid, I would draw comics and things like that, but nothing really serious. I didn't really think that I could make a living being an artist. So after I got out of high school, I went to a junior college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was trying to figure it out. And I tried a lot of different things. But when I was going to the junior college, I was taking art classes also. I was taking live drawing classes and whatever, just because I could, and I was just taking academic classes on the other side of it. But then one day I found a flyer in one of the classes for this guy. His name's Jeff Watts, and he was teaching drawing in downtown San Diego. So, and the drawings were really good. And I'm like, whoa, these drawings are way better than the teachers here or that I've even seen before. And so I went down there, and it was like brand new. It was he actually drew in the class, which I've never seen, any of the teachers at the junior college actually draw in front of me. He'd demo, he put tracing paper over the students' drawings and correct the anatomy and things like that. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. So I studied with him for like a year and a half, almost 2 years. And but if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know who Sargent was. I wouldn't know who anybody was. Sargent's probably the biggest one, but Mancini, Richard Schmid, just anybody. And from there, I met a couple friends, and we would go places. We would go like to for some reason, in Arizona, there was a lot of good traditional arts, a lot of good galleries in Arizona. So we would make road trips and go like to Tucson or Scottsdale and actually see real paintings. And it was great. And so I was like, I want to do this for a living. So Jeff has a pretty elaborate school now, but at the time, he wouldn't even teach. Like, we begged him to teach a gouache painting class, but and you had to be approved even to be in that class. You had to be good enough at drawing to paint, because which I don't totally agree with, but I'll explain why in a minute. But because it's true. But we begged him to teach the gouache class, and he taught us gouache, and and that was great because it's gouache is a really good precursor to learning oil, to direct painting oil, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to be sergeant and do all these kind of things. So, but here's the thing with well, so anyway, so he didn't teach painting, so I wanted to take classes from his teacher, and because this school was really small. I think he only taught on the weekends. It was like Thursday and two classes on Saturday, and then one class on Sunday. And so his teacher was Glenn Orbick, and his where he went to school was called the California Art Institute, and they taught people to paint and draw for the movie industry, doing movie posters and storyboarding, things like that. So so I moved up there, and the semester that I moved, Glenn stopped teaching, and so yeah, it's a real bummer. So like I met people. I went to the school anyway. I took it's not accredited school. It's just a school that had really good teachers at one time and had a good lineage. Actually, the guy that started it, his name is Fred Fixler, and he studied at the Art Students League and learned from Frank Riley. So that's kind of the lineage, and it goes back. Frank Riley learned from Bridgman. Bridgman learned from I forgot the French guy's name, but it goes back far. Um, so so anyway, I got there, and he wasn't teaching anymore. I took like the open workshops and things like that, but basically I learned at the same time, like almost like a year or two after the Richard Schmid book came out, the Alla Prima came out. And that book is how I learned how to paint. No one else that good has ever written down exactly how to paint and all just the fundamental things. So so that was great. That was exactly what I needed. I think that was like 1998, something like that. But that was exactly what I needed. And because there's like a Solomon J. Solomon book that's archaic, and there's a couple others, but it's, there's no pictures really, and it's hard to figure out what they're talking about a lot of times. They use bread, in their paintings and stuff. It's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. But like I wanted to be Sargent, I wanted to paint like Sargent or Schmid, and we could see real Schmid paintings, in Scottsdale and Tucson. A couple times we went to Scottsdale and they had like, I don't know, like 8 or 9 really large Schmid paintings. And so I was like, that's the shit right there. I want to do that for a living. And so yeah, so I worked at the time I worked at Borders, the bookstore that no longer exists, which was a great job because you could order any books you wanted at any time, and then at Christmas time they gave you 50% off. So we would just stockpile books and then buy them at Christmas. And yeah, it's a great job. It's a great job to have. Yeah, and I was like, a good worker boy. And so I would do double shifts so I could have a full day or days to paint without having to split up in half days, going to work. But so I would do double shifts, and then then I started to teach. They allowed me to teach at the school at the California Art Institute, so I started teaching and getting students and doing that kind of thing, and that was great because that's another income source, right? So so I taught, and then I moved to Santa Monica, and which was great because there was a Borders in Santa Monica. So I worked at the Border store and taught, and slowly started getting into showing into galleries. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, so this goes into like why you don't have to learn how to draw perfectly before you can get into painting. Because you can do a painting with one color, one color, burnt umber, right? You can do fantastic paintings in burnt umber. Or I would do them like Schmid in Venetian red and Terra Rosa. So you'd have like a warm and a cool red and get terrific paintings. And the other thing was, it was great because I could draw really well, right? But it would take me almost longer to do a drawing than a painting. And it's limiting. You
Yeah.
can't do as many cool brushstroke things. And so the other thing is, if you're gonna sell the drawing, you got to put a mat on it, you got to have glass and a frame. If it's a painting, you just need a frame. You don't need a glass or a mat. It's way cheaper. And so that's how I got into galleries, doing these red drawings, basically, in oil paint. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I did tons of those and slowly progressed and learned color along the way. And so, so that's why you can learn how to draw that way. You can learn how to draw with one color. And, you know, there's so many different kinds of you don't have to use a solvent now. You can use water. There's several oil-based paints. Cobra is one. It's sponsored by them. Sponsored by Rembrandt paints, but Cobra, they have like, I just did a meeting, they have like more than 100 colors now in the that water-based paint, and you can use them back and forth. You can use them with oil paints too. I don't know what that's called, but yeah, you can use them back and forth. Yeah, um so that's good. And then slowly you can graduate into using white with the one color, and so instead of wiping away for your lights like you would do in charcoal drawing, you're actually adding white and opacity, and but slowly kind of adding more tools to your you know your base of knowledge. And um, so that was one good thing about not going to a school. Like, I don't really have any rules that I can't break or anything like that. It's just kind of like, I want to be archival, right? I don't want my paintings to fall off the canvases, but at the same time, there's no rules. Like, no one taught me site size. I mean, I got the Charles Bard book and everything, but um, yeah, I would never draw that way. It's it's limiting. It's great to be anal and figure out how to draw really correctly and everything, but you know, comparative drawing is
Mm.
right on. And just learning the tools, plumb lines and things like that. That's important. But yeah, um, that's that's pretty much how I um, my beginning journey. And then eventually I was teaching enough. At the time in Santa Monica, there was probably 5 different art stores really close together, maybe like within 5 miles of each other. So I would put flyers in all those art stores, and that's how I got my students. And yeah, and so then I quit my job at Borders, which is great because the one in Santa Monica is gross. It's huge, but it's gross. Yeah, it's gross. Um, but sorry, Borders doesn't exist anymore. But
No.
um, but yeah, so I quit Borders and then taught, and teaching supplemented my income while I slowly started working my way into galleries, getting more more complex paintings and all that kind of stuff with galleries. And just slowly um, moved into that. And that was, I don't know what year it was, but a long time ago. Um, and and then the other big change was social media.
Mm.
So that was huge. That was huge for me because I I didn't have to get into a gallery to sell my paintings, which was great. I sold, to some of my students and things like that, but being able to just sell directly to the collector was great. And it just happened by accident. I didn't even it wasn't intentional really. I was going to have a studio sale, and this is a long time ago. Everyone has studio sales now, but where you sell paintings that aren't finished all the way or not framed or anything like that. But I was going to have like a physical studio sale at my place, and invite all my students and everything like that. 2 weeks, and I sold 90% of the work before the actual like physical studio sale, and I sold them to everybody, like uh, family members, collectors, galleries, new collectors, just everybody. All because of Instagram. It was all in Facebook too, a little bit, but it was Instagram. So that was huge for me. That was eye opening and great. So, but that's kind of a big 101 of how I started.
Wow, that's great. That's like, that it's very interesting that that you were forced to just draw. Um, and I guess I can kind of understand. I can kind of understand because 90% of a great painting is great drawing, right? It's like the basis. Um, but but yeah, drawing is an entirely different beast than trying to manage oil paint. You will listen. At the beginning, we all fight with the oil paint. We all fight it. It's not doing what we want it to do, and the only way to figure it out is by doing it. So I agree with you on that sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, because it does feel it feels like a battle sometimes, well, especially at the very, very beginning when you first time just using oil paint, it is a battle. And then you get used to it. But but yeah, that is so fascinating. And I love how you were very open about, your whole experience because um it sometimes feels like such a mystery, you just like you see someone on Instagram, right? Like I've seen your work on Instagram, of course. And it's like how did they get to this point, right? So wow, it's great to hear the whole thing. Um, and then also, I wanted to know, was there obviously you wanted to be an artist like ever since, forever. But was there like a moment when you were maybe like a kid or something where you were like, this is what I want to do? Or did it just happen on its own?
No, it was more when I saw Jeff in his studio,
Mm,
and he had a bunch of paintings around, and he was like painting and making a living as an artist, and I was
mhm.
like, "This is great, this is what I want to do." I didn't know it was even possible. It was just like not even in my spectrum. Nobody in my family's an artist. Nobody. My dad's a painter. He paints walls. He paints houses. So yeah, my mom's a nurse. But I have no. There was no example of that at all. I thought, when I was a kid, maybe I could, be an editorial cartoonist or something, like that. That's how you make money. But no, I had no concept until I think I was like 22 or something like that. After high school a bit. So it was um, it was him. I blame him for most of that.
It's his fault.
Um,
How dare he?
it is his fault. Yeah, yeah, it's his fault, for sure. But I mean, like, I would have never known. I would have never known that you could do that. His dad was an illustrator. Really
Mm,
good illustrator and everything. And so, um, he had like a little bit of a lineage, but yeah, I had no idea. And so, when I saw that too, like just the lineage and the tradition, I'm like, oh, that's so
yeah,
cool. So yeah, I just really wanted to do that once I actually saw it and that it was actually
right.
possible. So yeah, I just sacrificed everything for that, you know. Just what do I got to do this,
Mm-hmm.
And he's very much, disciplined guy, so that was good. He kind of taught, you like I have books full of drawings, so I take pictures of all the drawings and just look, research, then be like, okay, this is quick sketch drawing. These are long figurative. These are male portraits, female portraits, but examples before, this is before the internet basically. But yeah, I had big 3-ring binders full of examples, and I mean, I would bring them to class, and I would even, like the little Bridgman books. I to this day, I still, if I go to a life drawing class, I still have that book and I just warm up with it. I just draw from those pages. I've drawn them like 1,000 times, but I still draw them, because I just love them. There's
Yeah.
so much charm in those line works. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so it was him, and it was and the fact that he didn't just teach, how to draw well. He taught like how to get good at drawing, and that was important, or yeah, good at drawing or painting or anything basically. But he was also an athlete. He did like cycling and a few other things like that. So
Oh,
um, so yeah, discipline. So it's,
Yeah, I mean, you have to be if you
important.
want to do
Yeah.
that. Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Um.
Um,
So that is wow. I'm I'm still like digesting that because it's yeah, it's a good. I guess discipline is such an important thing, and of course, you definitely showed discipline and like being like, you know what, I'm gonna do double shifts just so I can, have the rest of my time to be able to do this. And I think that's also a testament to that motivation and that drive of I want to make this happen. I see that it's a possibility, and this is also for the listeners, who maybe are doubting that it's a possibility. No, it's even more of a possibility now, especially
yeah,
because of the internet.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you also, what is your creative process like? Like, when you have an idea, like how does that then become a painting?
Well, there's a few ways that it happens. A lot of times it starts with an idea, or it's almost like an emotional reaction to something. That happens a lot. And and sometimes I don't even know what the emotion is. Sometimes I look back at the painting like years later and realize what that painting was about. Sometimes I just think it would be a cool image. I'm like, oh, that'd be a really cool image. And then I realize like, oh, that painting was actually about like harboring, malicious intent or something like that. Like I did this painting of this girl holding an axe, and it's I did a few of them actually. But yeah, I didn't know what that was about until years later. And I'm like, oh geez, yeah, that's what that's about. It's like therapy or something. But but generally I get an idea and I'll do like a bunch of little thumbnails kind of based around that idea, just different compositional ideas where I play around with colors, values, and edges and everything, and figured out on that scale first. And I have little laws that I use when I'm doing those thumbnails because it's easy to get into details. Everyone wants to do details. So with those little studies, like I'm not allowed to draw any fingers, any toes, no faces. Just big shapes, and I try to do them pretty quick. Like an hour or so is max. But only big shapes. So um, yeah, no real, and I'm not really too worried about edges either. I'm just a little bit, but it's mostly just how the big shapes look together. Like how you would see a painting from 50 feet away. That's what I'm trying to do. And then does that say what I want it to say and all that stuff? And if yes, then I make it bigger and make it a real painting. But that's pretty much my big 101 how I do a painting. So,
Yeah. At BoldBrush, we inspire artists to inspire the world because creating art creates magic, and the world is currently in desperate need of magic. BoldBrush provides artists with free art marketing, creativity, and business ideas and information. This show is an example. We also offer written resources, articles, and a free monthly art contest open to all visual artists. We believe that fortune favors the bold brush. And if you believe that too, sign up completely free at boldbrushshow.com. That's BoldBrush show.com. The BoldBrush Show is sponsored by Faso. Now more than ever, it's crucial to have a website when you're an artist, especially if you want to be a professional in your career. Thankfully, with our special link, faso.com/podcast, you can make that come true and also get over 50% off your first year on your artist website. Yes, that's basically the price of 12 lattes in 1 year, which I think is a really great deal considering that you get sleek and beautiful website templates that are also mobile friendly, e commerce, print on demand in certain countries, as well as access to our marketing center that has our brand new art marketing calendar. And the art marketing calendar is something that you won't get with our competitor. The art marketing calendar gives you day by day, step by step guides on what you should be doing today, right now, in order to get your artwork out there and seen by the right eyes so that you can make more sales this year. So, if you want to change your life and actually meet your sales goal this year, then start now by going to our special link, faso.com/podcast. That's FASO.com/podcast. Yeah, I'm always curious, because obviously, every painter has their own way of doing things. I mean, some painters they might hate doing thumbnail sketches, or and they do fine, right? I mean, everyone has their own process. So I always get curious, like, I wonder how they started. And I can definitely see why you would do that too, because your work has so much play of light and shadow and dark and light. Like I like how a lot of your paintings, they're like these beautiful portraits, and they're buttressed by this really nice dark shape, right, of maybe their clothing, or they're surrounded by something that really highlights that contrast in their face, which is really beautiful. It definitely draws the eye.
Thank you.
So I can see, you're welcome. So I can see how you would use that, especially with the thumbnail sketches, to really see the impact of that painting. I think that's such a great thing. Um, and how you said, imagining it from 50 feet away. If it impacts you from 50 feet away, then that's a big deal. That's a really important thing. Um, but right now, for example, you are working on some paintings for your solo show that's happening in June, right?
Yes.
And I would count that as a challenging time, because you have to paint a lot of things. How do you stay motivated during a challenging time such as this?
Well, yeah, it's hard. It's very difficult, and it's difficult not to repeat yourself. If you get one or two paintings that are working, you're like, I do 10 like that.
Hmm.
You don't want to do that. But so it's probably one of the more difficult things to do. Stay motivated. So a few of the things that I do are I exercise. I run and lift weights and do things like that. That helps. Especially running. It just kind of clears your mind. Um, that's really important. But I mean, there's all kinds of things like even honestly, one of the things that's really good also, which is I think really important, is to have um like it's gonna sound like therapy, but like a support group, like people that you talk to, friends that you can call and talk to and just kind of sort out what you're thinking and going through. And just talking, I think, is great because it can get really isolating being an artist, especially if you have a nice cave to play in. It can be yeah, it can be isolating, and it's good and it's bad, because like you said, I have a show coming up in June at Arcadia, and it's actually a very short amount of time to have a solo show. It's like 7 months I think I had to do to prepare for this. So um it's great to have a nice quiet space and everything like that, but also um yeah, you really need to talk to people and have a little bit of a social life. Like I have a friend that I go on walks with, and um and yeah, so all of that is it's critical, because you can exercise yourself to death, and it's okay, but yeah, having some people to talk to is important. And yeah, I don't know. Just being healthy is important too. Eating the right things and stuff like that is good.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
But
great
yeah,
point. Yeah,
yeah.
I
So
mean, even
you got to
sleeping
keep your
well.
mind sharp. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sleep is
Yeah.
super important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I can imagine, like, especially when you're like, really like really short on time or something, or like you're really pressured. It can oftentimes happen that you just like stay up all night painting, and then oh, the birds are singing, uh-oh, and then you pulled an all-nighter without realizing, and then it kind of throws you off. So yeah, definitely, nourishing the other sides of you, your mind and your body. I agree. That's very understated. And also,
Yeah.
since, like you said, we're so isolated in our caves, it's
Yeah.
very easy to completely just like disappear from the world and say, "Oh, I haven't heard from Aaron in, I don't know, a month." You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It happens. It happens.
Hmm.
It's a easy thing to do. Because you think that that's like the goal. It's like, oh man, if I just had this much time alone, I could do so much work and everything. But
Yeah,
it's a myth. It's a myth.
it is.
You
It
need,
is.
yeah, you need
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
So
and a lot of like, compartmentalizing too, like
Hmm.
this is the time for work, and then when you're not in the studio, just like putting it out of your mind, because or else you're just gonna drive yourself crazy.
Yeah,
So I could totally understand that.
yeah. I
So I
found
really,
also. Oh,
oh yeah,
sorry.
no, go for it, go for it.
Um, no, I found that yeah, your body kind of likes pattern. It likes to like work at this time and sleep. It really works the best when you have a 101 kind of pattern that
Mhm.
by doing the same thing over and over. It works pretty well.
Yeah.
Just like with sleep, it's the same thing.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
But it's with work too.
definitely.
But
Yeah. It's so important to go to sleep and wake up, at the same times as much as possible, because that really balances out the rest of your circadian rhythm, basically, which is like,
mhm,
it's so funny because the most fundamental thing, right, which is health, is like the number one thing to focus on, because it truly is, with health you have nothing. Like you really can't function at 100%, and then maybe you end up burning out. So
mhm,
it's an excellent point. Damn.
yeah.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're sleeping, depending on there's all different stages of sleep, and
Mhm.
each stage releases different hormones. So if you
Yeah,
don't get those hormone releases, you're not going to function well when you're awake. So
exactly.
health tip
Yeah.
101. Um,
Yeah, I have
right.
noticed that actually a lot of painters, a lot of artists, we tend
Mhm,
to, lean towards the side of like health. I guess also because it's such a sedentary career. A lot of us end up doing like other things. I mean, I interviewed someone, he does like dancing. It's like a street style sort of dancing. It's pretty cool. I've met someone else who does hockey. Uh you just mentioned you do weightlifting. I do weightlifting actually, so it's like it's the only thing that keeps me sane, uh, aside from painting and sleeping. So, yeah, it's so funny that, it's so, it's kind of obvious too when you think about it, that if your mind, you need your mind, right? If your body, sorry, not your mind, if your body is out of whack, it really doesn't help you in any way, especially for painting, because it takes so much mental work to paint, especially with
yeah.
oils, because you have to plan ahead and you have to make sure that, oh, I'm working on this painting and I have to leave it to dry. And so I'm going to work on this section so then I can work on that section. So then I can do this finishing piece over here. Like it's a lot of mental gymnastics, and you can't do mental gymnastics without doing actual gymnastics.
Yeah, it is. And the best paintings are the ones that are the more personal, the more real paintings. Those are always
Yes.
the best ones. And so, you know, when you lie, everyone knows, they can tell.
Yes.
So like I think, and I have most of my self portraits still, but I think my self portraits are some of my best paintings because I'm just doing them for me, so it's kind of like there's no BS in there. I'm not trying to sell a painting or, you know, conform to somebody else's idea of what they want to see. It's just me.
Mhm.
And so they're very direct. And so I think they're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they're different too.
Mhm.
So that's another thing that I think is important. Just um, and which goes into not having like a school that I belong to or anything is like everything is open. I'm open to you know uh, any kind of style or whatever gets the point across. I'm
Yes.
not gonna be like, oh, I don't like that. I mean, I like Mark Rothko. I like whoever. It's like, okay, he's not a figurative painter. Okay, but what he does looks cool. And like
Yeah.
you were talking about, like a lot of times there's like big silhouettes in my paintings and things like that. It's I like Black Sabbath. I like heavy guitar riffs. I like simple but powerful. And that's kind of what I'm going for in almost all my paintings.
Yeah.
Different ways of framing. Even cinematic kind of things.
Yeah.
Like good filmmakers, things like that. I've been getting into that more lately. That's
Mhm.
um, that's what I've been kind of diving into lately. More relationship kind of based um, narrative painting. Um, Before, I mean, I painted a lot of just solo people, and now I'm doing a little bit more of couples and interactions between them. So that's been different for me. So, um, but yeah, got off topic a little bit there, but that's what I think makes that, and that's why anyone can do great work, because if it's true to them, it's going to be great, you
Yeah.
know, and and that's another thing too. You don't have to, like, maybe this guy, but no one's gonna know who he is. But there's a guitarist called Yngwie Malmsteen. But he could play like every single classical music piece on his guitar super fast, and none of his songs are good. They're just horrible. But as a technician, he's the best. He's
Yeah.
like the best guitarist ever, right? But you don't know who he is, right? We like the Beatles and things like that. Simple, because simple, and it tells the story. It's not bogged down in technical, prowess. It's just beautiful and simple and elegant, and it has emotion behind it. It's not just how fast you can play a complex thing, or how many values you can get away with, or gradations, and things like that are just they're meaningless. They're technically meaningless unless there's something behind it, something of value behind it, something true. So that's kind of my painting philosophy. That's kind of how I approach painting. I try to. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good point, especially, for people out there who are listening who are maybe, still trying to figure out their voice and trying to figure out what do I even paint. It's like that's like the number one question, like what do I paint? Well, paint what draws you in, right? Paint the
Right.
thing that, makes you be honest and
Hmm.
authentic because like you said, people can feel it. People can feel when you're not being authentic and they can see it
Yeah.
in the work and it won't pull them in because it's so weird. It's almost like this ethereal quality, where like the work that just comes from the soul, you feel it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then the work that doesn't just you just feel that
But
it does. It's weird.
yeah. Yeah. Paint what you
Yeah.
love. Correct. Paint what you love. I painted I used to have two Boston Terriers, and I painted them, and
Yeah. I
same
have a
thing.
portrait with one. It's so cute.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love those dogs. So yeah, it could be anything though. It could be anything. It could be your shoes. Anything. Van Gogh did a pretty cool painting of his boots, before he painted with all the color. He did it's very limited. There maybe it's two colors. I don't know. It might just be one, like black. But I don't remember now. But it's a great painting, and it doesn't need to, you know, be technically whatever. It tells the whole story.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I agree.
but
It's, it's very true. Um, but now jumping into I guess like the marketing and a little bit of the logistics, right, of being an artist, which can be a challenge. When you were, you know, like my question now is more so towards like when you were teaching and then, maybe you became a full-time artist, right? Not that transition, right? What was that like for you? Was it like slowly it, kind of worked out that way, or were you able to just like cut and just go?
yeah, no, it was slow. It was over a few years for sure. Um, because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to be a fine artist. I wanted to be a gallery artist, and so I was like, what do I have to do to do this? And I just wanted everything to culminate to where it would help facilitate that, So working at Borders didn't really facilitate that, too much, So as soon as I could cut that out, I did. Um, but but yeah, you know, I think some of when you teach, like, a lot of times I would get, because my drawings they were pretty decent drawings when I was teaching, because I would teach life drawing, and a lot of times I would get people to take my class, and they would see me, and I was like, 20 something years old, and like, oh, you're just a kid, like, I thought you'd be like an old man or something, and I'm like, I think, but some of the best teachers are the ones that are, just kind of learning, and can do the things, but everything is kind of new and fresh to them. They're not like crusted over, and they can actually express the ideas that maybe someone would just be like, you just got to go through a million drawings to figure it out. So draw teaching, I think almost anyone can do that, early on. I think that's a really good way to start. And it doubles down on what you're teaching somebody what and so you have to vocalize it and basically explain it to somebody who has no clue. And it's also good. I have some good teaching stories because I've taught for a long time, and I've taught some. I mean, I taught a guy. I'm positive he was in the witness relocation program. I mean, I'm positive. You know, this guy was like total Sopranos guy, and he had a pinky ring that was like as big as my thumb on his pinky, and
What?
he could just smash me in any time if he wanted to. He was humongous. But yeah, it just so teaching is it's interesting, it's fun, but you learn more. You get better at your craft by teaching. So I think that is a great way to supplement your income. And then like the thing I want to say with social media is, it's easy to get bogged down in it and just kind of um, be negative towards it. But
Mhm.
it's like a great opportunity for artists right now. I know tons of artists, and I'm sure most of the viewers do also, that just sell, directly or through their Instagram or whatever. They don't have a gallery, and it's also, I think we all have a degree of creativity, and you just have to kind of put it the into your posts. Like a lot of people do the same things over and over, like varnishing the paintings or whatever. I mean, I do that, but but be creative with it. When I first got that like aha moment when um, I didn't get it the aha moment until after it happened. But what I did is for that studio sale, I laid out a whole bunch of paintings on my studio floor and I took a picture of it. And I'm like, I'm gonna have a studio sale, and this all these are gonna be here and frames and all kinds of stuff. And then people started emailing me that picture back and circling the paintings. They're like, how much is this one? How much? Like a lot of people. And I'm like, oh wow, really this really works. Just kind of organic. I'm not trying to sell an individual painting. I'm just kind of showing them what I'm doing, and it worked great. Like I said, I sold almost everything before the actual opening of the studio sale, the physical opening. So I think it's just a matter of putting your creativity into the marketing side of your paintings, and it can be anything. It can be anything. There's tons of ways to do it. Stuff that's not been done yet, stuff that's been done with your own little twist on it. It can be anything, but it's you know, when you sell your stuff yourself, you don't have to give a percentage to the gallery. It's very nice. It's very nice,
Nice.
and like a lot of galleries don't share information like who bought your painting.
Yep.
So you develop a relationship with that person, and a lot of times those relationships last years, right? They continue to purchase from you. So you know it's um it's good. And I mean, I like knowing who has my paintings.
Yes.
I enjoy that a lot.
Yes.
And they send you a picture of it on their wall or whatever. It's so gratifying, you know.
It is.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, that's a really good side of kind of social media and being able to market yourself and be a living artist. So
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no more I guess gatekeeping
Mhm.
from galleries. And yeah, I totally agree. There are so many ways of, and I'm gonna use the word branding, even though I find it to be kind of a dirty word when you're an artist, because I still like to think that we're people and not, a brand alone. And we also change over time. But it is a little bit of branding to, do things in a way that draws you, especially with social media. So you become like recognizable to
Mhm.
people. And I feel like that happens naturally too. You just naturally, instead of, looking at what other people are doing, right? Yeah, you can look at that, but also have the inclination of like, how would I do it? how would I want
Right.
to approach this to be more true to myself, more true to my work, and to make it stand out as, in its own way without, being gimmicky, because I feel like there are a lot of, gimmicky ways of of posting paintings on social media that, just seem a little bit disingenuous and a little bit contrived, and it's like a dime a dozen. There are tons of those. I'm not going to give any examples though, because I feel like we know what they are.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
okay.
And it's totally
It's
fine. Yeah, it's
yeah.
totally fine. But I feel like, you can level yourself up. You can, come on, you can do
Mhm.
something, right? Which
Yeah.
I think you pull off really well on your pages. And actually, I did want to ask you, how do you personally, since now we're on the topic of social media, how do you personally, manage, to work on your creative side, which is of course painting and the production of paintings, and manage your time and your energy, also with the marketing and your finances, for example.
Well, I mean, I probably do that the worst. Don't I don't really yeah, there's no real I don't have any real guidelines there at all. I literally, if I think a painting is looking cool, I'll take a picture of it and post it.
No
And
worries.
um, I'll tell you one funny thing is sometimes, I'll take pictures of my paintings in progress, and sometimes I will redo a painting because it looked better before I did that next stage. I'm like,
Mm,
okay, I killed it after this stage. And so I'm just going to redo it and stop at that stage.
mhm.
So that happens, I've done that several times, but, you just kind of kill the spontaneity and the energy of a painting by overworking it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, one of the things I guess, which is another good aspect of social media is you can, speaking on finances, is there's lots of ways to make money, being an artist. You can teach, you can do Zoom classes. I did Zoom class, started that during the pandemic, which is, it's all right. It's kind of weird. You sit in a room by yourself, it's not as good as teaching in person for sure. You can just
Mm.
like go like that and correct someone's painting. Telling them to do that on Zoom is like, okay, no, yes, no. It's much more difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can teach, and like when I started doing that, I mean, I'm teaching people in Dubai, Australia, all over the world. So the reach is broad. So that's good. And then I think we were talking about earlier too. You can sell prints of your work. You can make lower cost reproductions of your work, so you can have a broader audience there and make money doing that. So that's really good. But the main thing that I do, I guess, is I just keep all my costs low. I don't have a huge overhead at all. My right now my apartment is my studio. I have I don't have a living room table. I have a big flat file in the middle of my living room,
Nice.
which is great. Yeah, it keeps all the paintings dust free, and it's great. But yeah, it's basically two rooms. One has all my art stuff in it, and tons of books, and the other side is my bedroom, which is full of boxes with paintings in it.
Nice.
Yeah, so so right now that's how things are. I'm just working really hard to, kind of progress in my, even though I've been doing it for a long time, I still, I don't feel like I've kind of got to a spot where I'm like successful, like really
Hmm.
successful, or even just, I mean, I'm a living artist, so I'm making money off of my work and everything, but at the same time, um, I think that um, I could do better and more, and that's what I'm working on, and that's what I have been working on, and especially right now, and that's why I'm doing that the solo show with Arcadia. It's great gallery, it's a great opportunity, and it's it's a lot of pressure, and so pressure is good. It forces you to work. And so that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm doing it. I want to you know, I don't want to be famous. I want to be successful. I
Mhm.
want to be able to like have a house, things like that. You know. So so that's kind of my goal right now. So yeah, so the overhead is low. I think that's an
Mhm.
important thing. I'm not buying fancy plein air painting kits or expensive paint, nothing like that. I used to make those facade boxes that they're basically portable palettes, you know. Um, but yeah, you can do a lot of stuff on your own. You don't need to fancy magnetic panels that stick to the back of the thing. I mean, they're nice, but
They
you
are,
know,
but they're expensive
expensive.
as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, expensive. So, so yeah, I just keep my costs low. That's probably the main thing that I try to do. So
Yes.
if I goof off too long on Instagram or whatever, it's okay. It's okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, but that's a great point, if you're gonna do it, right, and try your best to make things happen, it's really important to keep living below your means as long as you can,
Yeah,
of course with the goal of eventually, finally leveling up. But yeah, it is, if you can, live below your means and you're comfortable and you're not lacking anything, then that's a huge win in my opinion. That's actually, one of the sides of being successful is, oh, I'm not worried about, starving, which is
right.
really important,
Yeah,
especially as a full-time artist, right? Um, so yeah, that's a great point, for our listeners. Yeah, live below your means as much as you can. Uh, because then, if not, you might have to get a day job and that might suck. But
yeah.
but there's also nothing wrong with getting a day job. Yeah. Do you have any final advice for anyone who wants to become, a full-time artist?
Well, I guess just kind of reiterate, paint what you love, and kind of yeah, just I think that's the key to it. I think if you um go in with like a marketing strategy and things like that, it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder. Um and if you just start small and build from that, it becomes easier, because a lot of times you get into a trap where you may have some studio overhead cost or whatever, and you feel like, well, if I paint this, then I can afford that, and you just get way out on an island that you don't want to be on, and painting stuff you don't want to paint. um, and it's difficult to enjoy painting. That's probably the most important thing, like to be successful and enjoy what you're doing, because yeah, someone asked me, I think my dad, it's like, are you still enjoying it? I'm like, hell yeah, like, yeah, for sure. um this is what I've been doing the whole time. And you know I don't know if I want to say this part, but like, I've done it. My parents, no help, like, no money. Um, so it's been tough. Um, because I didn't go to college. I went to junior college, but no, like, you know, um, official diploma or anything like that. Degree. That's another thing that's good. You don't need a degree or anything to teach, generally, unless you're doing a accredited university. And even then, you don't need it really. But I've taught at fashion schools, taught all over the place, and yeah, they just care if you're good and you can convey, the message in a pleasant way, I guess. But yeah, yeah, for sure. Paint what you love, and you'll figure out how to make a living from that. If you start small. I think that's a good final thought.
Yeah. Well, that's a great one. And again, yeah, teaching can be a very good
Mhm.
gateway
Yeah,
to, to getting into the realm of like being able to, do it full time. And then also, a lot of artists keep teaching anyway. I mean, you have a lot of really awesome online courses, and like you said, you do
Mhm.
the Zoom ones, and you still do workshops. And those are also, great ways to supplement income, like you said. Um, but yeah, that's excellent advice. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I love
so
teaching.
yeah, teaching, I think teaching is it's the best. It's the
Mm.
best. Because it forces you also to learn the craft better, because the only way for you to teach the craft, you have to know it twice as good, because how else are you going to explain it to someone who knows absolutely nothing, right?
Right.
So it really forces you to be more introspective about, okay, why does this work? How can I explain to this person how this works and why this works, and also how to get them to believe me that it works? Because oftentimes, students will be like, "But why?" And it's like, and you just kind of have to be like, "Trust me, it works." But maybe it's better to actually be able to explain why it works. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's really cool. And then also, of course, you come across other people who inspire you, and then I feel like that's the other really powerful thing is, word of mouth. Uh which, if someone hears, oh yeah, this guy, he paints really amazing things, and then, someone else hears about it, and then, oh, they're buying your painting, right? It's like it
Mhm.
becomes this network as
Yeah.
well of people and students who also appreciate your work and buy your work. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I'll just say real quick on top of that is,
Yeah.
well, a couple of things, but I love seeing like the light go on in someone's head when they, figure something out. You're like, yes. But the other thing that I do with teaching that I like a lot is I introduce people to other artists that they've never heard of before. Like this is Odd Nerdrum, this is whoever, and they're like, oh my God, this is brilliant, and they didn't know, and then you showed them, and they're like inspired, and that is so enjoyable. That is, and I think people need to see a diverse range of art. They can't just see like Sargent, it's like, okay, that's one dude,
Yeah.
he did a lot of good stuff, but that's one guy. Look at all these other guys who were able to convey the same kind of stuff, but in their own unique way, and so that's important because that's the thing, people get bogged down in like there's only one way to get to this goal, and there's a lot of ways, there's a lot of ways, there's not just one. So showing a diverse range of artists to students is great. It's unparalleled way of kind of opening up the door to the possibilities of making marks on canvas. So I think it's really important for sure.
Oh, I completely agree. Personally, as a, I when I was a student, one of the things I struggled with was we did kind of, at least in one of the places, we did kind of have like this environment where you really had to fit into a specific mold.
Mm.
And I just, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't quite fit that mold, quite the way that
Yeah.
my instructors wanted me to. And it was always such a downer for me because I just felt like a huge disappointment. When really it shouldn't be that way, right? I shouldn't be trying to
Hmm.
fit some.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly, because that's the thing. I'll see someone kind of leaning towards this direction, and I'm like, okay, you would really like this person, and then they're like, oh my God, and it's like it's possible, it's possible. You can do it. They did it. You can do it. So yeah, yeah. That's conformity is not an artistic thing. I don't think at all. You know. Uh, yeah. Right. We want to make our own shit. You know. Hmm. Um, Well, I don't quite have all of that worked out yet, but it's for what I don't have like a title or anything yet. I got some possibilities, but like I, I literally want to see what it all looks like together to kind of put a name on it. But it's more uh, couple-based interactions and more of a narrative, that I think is a little bit new for me. A little bit more, yeah, a little bit more narrative quality to these paintings, and uh, yeah, like it's in June, so but I still have like 10-ish paintings to do. I gotta have 20. So, but the main kind of underlying rhythm behind them is they're more narrative based and more, um, I don't know. It's not so hard to figure out what's going on, and there's lots of different interpretations. There's, ones that, the reason why I did the painting, and then there's everyone else's interpretation. And I showed some of them at the LA Art Show, and so it's more of that kind of a thing. And and what I've been posting lately, and it's all leading up to that. I'm not, that's another thing too. I'm not posting any finished paintings before the show, because the gallery wants them to be new and fresh, for the show, which is good. But it's also hard to not show all these paintings, that I'm sitting on. So, I like the reactions that I get from social media. It kind of helps me sometimes even understand what I'm doing. But it helps. It's not a bad thing. But yeah, so that's